What's being called the greatest wealth transfer in history is now underway. And many who would otherwise be left vulnerable in an America that is pricing out its population will instead be lifted out of guaranteed precarity. How fortunate these people are to have had previous generations stitching together what will serve as parachutes for them in this moment. Decades, if not centuries of advantage joined together over time, which will set them down gently beyond a place of despair and uncertainty. There's arguably no greater measure of how America and the government has worked for you and your family than the size of your parachute right now. Which is why when we, the descendants of chattel slavery, go to reach for our ripcord, we find ourselves with nothing in hand. We find only how our government has refused our ancestors any security to pass on. We'll know only our government's unwillingness to guarantee our families the same opportunities it readily afforded other groups to grow with America and to mature their wealth. And now we're in free fall. The ground is racing up toward us, but we are being told we only have ourselves to blame for our imminent collision. The parachutes of airs are snapping open all around us, but we just get told to flap our arms harder. Get told we need more willpower to overcome. Well, we do need willpower. The power of a will to pass on an inheritance. But that inheritance was plundered from us. And now that wealth must be repaid. There's no future for us in America without reparations. That is the message that this movement will be taking out into communities all across the country as we roll out chapters. And the demand for reparations is what we will bring into the voting booth every election until Washington starts delivering. We have our own great wealth transfer to pursue. And our only hope of triumph is through organizing ourselves into a political force that cannot be put out of mind. That process begins today.
For far too long, reparations for American descendants of slavery have been dismissed as impossible. Now, in ADOS Reparations Framework, a book written by Aisha Muhammed, Policy Director for the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, delivers a bold, actionable plan to make reparations real. From defining eligibility to financial restitution, land equity, education, and mental health healing, this guide walks you through every phase. If you're ready for credible, effective solutions, this is the blueprint. ADOS Reparations Framework, available now. With every purchase, 100% goes directly to the Justice for Generations campaign. Justice isn't a hope, it's a plan.
Welcome to the ADOS Advocacy Foundation's Reparations Framework Town Hall. I am Simeon Harris, your host for today. We are live on YouTube and Facebook. We need you to share this video, hit the like button. I'd love to see where everyone is from in chat. So if you are watching us live, throw in chat where you're from. So we can see where everyone is. I know I see we have folks from California. I see we have folks in Cincinnati, North Carolina. That's right. We can't stop and we won't stop. I see we have folks all around right now. We have North Carolina in. Who else do we have? Bay Area, all throughout California. Yeah, throw it in chat. Yeah, we got Dallas, Philly, we got Georgia, Raleigh, South Florida in the building, DC, more Georgia and Florida and Ohio, New York stepping in. We got our folks out in Brussels, Belgium, stepping up for the family even while abroad. Way to go. We got New Jersey in the building. Oakland, Harlem. We got the Bronx in the building. Alton, Illinois, Mississippi, Tampa, Florida. Yo, let's get those likes up. Massachusetts, Atlanta. We got the DMV fully representing. We got Colorado, North Georgia, out with all of the apples in the mountains and going. We got California. We got Chicago, DC, Kansas, Fort Lauderdale. What's up, our good brother Nick? Syracuse, New York. I had a sibling born there. Decatur, where it's greater. I know that for a fact. We got Texas, Nashville, Midtown Miami, Springfield, Massachusetts, Baton Rouge, New Orleans. Y'all keep it going. And we're going to get started momentarily. Mesquite, Texas, where they make great smoking wood. Fayetteville, Moore, Maryland, Baltimore, Boston, St. Louis. What's up, our brother Ian? Atlanta, Houston, Detroit, East St. Louis, Metro Memphis, Tennessee. We got Florida chapter members, Houston. Oh, y'all are deep. We got Oklahoma in the building. Looks like we got Duval County up in Florida. Loving that. Our brother Dap doesn't like the video. What about you? We got folks who are currently in Qatar, or as George Bush would call it, Qatar. We got people all around right now. Jay in North Carolina, New Jersey, Birmingham, Alabama. What's up, Bama Ivy? We got ADOS throughout the whole country. For those that don't know, we have ADOS members in 48 states in this continental United States, and we have members abroad. So shout out to all of you for being here today. Again, I am Simeon Harris, and I'm hosting today's ADOS Reparations Framework. This town hall is sponsored by the ADOS Advocacy Foundation. The ADOS Advocacy Foundation is a 501c4 organization with the mission of advocating for reparations and a transformative Black agenda. We specialize in politics with the focus on ADOS communities. You can learn more at adosfoundation.org. If you're interested in getting updates or joining our mailing list, or even better, becoming a member, you can go to joinados.com. Obviously, it's not just me today. If you look on the flyer, we got a whole group of intelligent, awesome people who are joining us. I want to start with someone who is foundational to this movement, the founder and president of the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, Miss Yvette Carnell.
Hey, Simeon, how you doing?
How you doing, Madam President?
I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to this.
I am too. I find it really amazing that we're here today. It was 2017 when I met you the first time at the Angela Project in Birmingham, Alabama. I was sitting on the front row. It was me, and right next to me was Killer Mike, and next to him was a good homeboy of mine from Hampton University that I graduated with. And we were sitting on the front row listening to you and listening to Antonio Moore and Dr. Kevin Cosby talk about ADOS and really defining not just our lineage, but what we've experienced here in America and us being a specific group. And now we fast forward. Not only did you build a movement, not only did you create a Black agenda that initially was ADOS 101, but you built a foundation, the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, a machine designed to help us fight for reparations and a transformative Black agenda. What is it like today, sitting here, and now we're talking about a reparations framework that was created by the ADOS Advocacy Foundation and authored by Aisha Muhammed, a mechanism or a machine that you put together? What is that like for you being here today to talk to us about it?
Well, at first, I want to just say, if you met me in 2017, you met me before my gray hairs. So
I didn't have any either.
Each and every one of those gray hairs to the ADOS movement. But, you know, you never know. When people started saying, when we started having the wealth conversation, people say, well, what are we going to do about it? What do we do? What's the solution? And there's only one solution. And that solution is organizing within an institution, right? So, but you never know if you're really going to be able to pull it off. If we're going to be able to, if I'm going to be able to find people like you, people like Aisha, and people like Claudio, you never know if you're going to find the people to be here and do it with you, because ain't no salary, right? So I just feel really blessed. I just feel really blessed and highly favored to be here with people who are willing to put skin in the game and get nothing out of it, especially in this era of corruption that we're currently living through.
Absolutely. And for those that don't know, the ADOS Advocacy Foundation is an all-volunteer organization. No one accepts any payment. Even our president doesn't get paid. She be working all the time. Our policy director doesn't get paid. I don't get paid. Our state coordinators across the 11 states that we have chapters in don't get paid. Our outreach director doesn't get paid. No one's getting paid. This is all a labor of love for everyone here who wants to be here for our people and ensure that our people have a way forward politically. We got some more guests I'm going to add here. Our next guest is actually the author of the book that we're talking about. It is the ADOS Advocacy Foundation's policy director, Aisha Muhammed. So y'all welcome Aisha to the stage. How's it going, Aisha?
Hey, Simeon, I'm doing great. Hey, Yvette, how y'all?
Doing good.
Hey, happy to have you. You know, me and you, the three of us actually got to talk previously on the Critical Mass podcast about the reparations framework, but at that time it was pre-released. It hadn't been released yet. You know, I was able to get a pre-release copy in the form of a PDF. I hadn't even seen the beautiful book that it is today. I hadn't even gotten to see the beautiful book that it is today. It was just a pre-release PDF. And we spent some time talking about what was in the book. But now it is out. It is available for purchase. It's available for people to learn more. And we've seen it be really impactful and a great reception across the country for this book. And we also have had a very impactful fundraiser called Justice for Generations, with the goal of creating an ADOS reparations bill. So how does this ADOS reparations framework play into that goal?
Thank you for the question, Simeon, and congrats to you on your podcast and doing this. You always do a great job, and you're flying solo, putting all this stuff together. So hats off to you. Everybody, give some hearts in the comments to Simeon.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Simeon his flowers.
Maybe some bourbon.
That's it. Thank you for your question, brother. First, I actually want to sincerely thank everyone who purchased the ADOS Reparations Framework book. To those who took photos of the book, shared the book link online, and recommended the book to friends and family. I appreciate you. All of us at the org appreciate you. So definitely keep that up. And just so you know, your support helped the book reach #1 in legislative branch books, #2 in 90-minute politics and social sciences short reads, and #3 in 90-minute history short reads during its first week on Amazon. In its second week, it ranked #1 in Amazon's Black and African American book categories. So thank you for the sound effects. Thank you for all your incredible.
Right now, so I had to bring it out. I'm loving it.
I didn't know what that was. I was like, okay, that sound effect. All right. So again, thank you all for your support, and please keep it going. So to the question, the ADOS Reparations Framework is the foundation of our advocacy, right? It represents our political philosophy, and it clearly articulates our position on the reparations question. We are often asked, what's next? When we discuss the social and political history of this country and the persistent political marginalization of our community, this framework is our answer to what's next. So to be clear, this is not a history book. Over the past 15 and 20 years, numerous historians have produced outstanding work documenting the experiences of our ancestors during slavery, and the wealth extracted from them. Many economists have also calculated the economic cost of that extraction. The contribution of the ADOS movement has been to articulate the necessity of a focused, sustained advocacy strategy for reparations. This book serves as a blueprint outlining at a minimum what comprehensive reparations legislation should include. The next step is to continue advocating, but now we're armed with specificity and clarity provided in this framework. I encourage each and every one of you to share it with your legislators. I have already sent copies to nearly 24 lawmakers myself. And more directly, every dollar earned from the book goes to the Justice for Generations fundraiser, which, as many of you know, is how we will fund our reparations bill.
I love that. I was really struck as soon as you opened the book to the dedication to my grandparents who did not choose sharecropping but endured it, laboring on soil that so enriched the nation, even as it deprived them. That's a bar, but it really speaks to what our ancestors experienced, and also how it's our duty to fight that they get their just due. And that just due, if they had got it when they were supposed to get it, would have trickled down right into our families today. Just as the wealth of cotton and slavery is still trickling down into the families of former slaveholders, and also all of the families that got the benefit from whiteness here in the United States. At the same time, while we were toiling, our families were toiling in that soil in which you speak. Even our immigrant brothers and sisters get to benefit from the work that slaves put in these United States, whether that be the school that they go to, whether they're here at Georgetown or whether they're here at UNC Chapel Hill, whether that be the White House that they're renovating right now, whether that be any of these institutions, whether that be why they had cadavers to study medical science in. We ended up being all of those things that made this nation what it is. And it's our duty to not forget that and ensure that fight continues on. For those that are just joining, this is the ADOS Advocacy Foundation's Reparations Framework Town Hall. If you are not a member, you can scan right now on this QR code and join. You can also donate. Our average donation is under $20. Every little bit counts. So you can join now. You can donate now. You can go to joinados.com and get on our mailing list if you're not ready to join just yet. Also, if you don't already have the reparations framework, the ADOS Reparations Framework book, you can scan this QR code right now, and it will take you to purchase that book. We got a few more guests I'm gonna bring up. The ADOS Advocacy Foundation currently has has chapters in 11 states. Let's see if I can get all of these states right. We have Georgia, where Matt. Let's see if I can do it. We have Georgia, where Madam President is. We have North Carolina. Shout out to the North Carolina chapter. I am a member of the North Carolina chapter. We have Maryland. And Maryland, Maryland was out today, I think in Adirondack County, where they were issuing an apology for slavery in that county, in the county that houses Annapolis, the capital. I know that they were out today. We have ADOS Mississippi, who is out almost every week doing some type of disaster recovery, helping educate the people, whether it be needing to pass out waters or do full civic education. What an engaged chapter. Shout out to Leo. We have our ADOS Florida chapter, who is our newest chapter, but I had a chance to join them just 2 weeks ago at their meeting, and what a great motivated group. We got ADOS Missouri, who I know is steeped heavily into some housing issues in that area, really active. We got our chapter in New York, super active chapter. Last I checked, they had done a whole genealogy workshop for people, just really educating. We got our New Jersey chapter, who also coordinates some with our New York chapter, getting it done. We got our California chapter, who was at the Capitol during last session up in Governor Newsom's office in demanding that he sign some of the bills that ended up signed as part of the reparations framework or package that they did in California. We got ADOS Kentucky, who just had an event a few weeks ago where they were organizing and making sure people knew exactly what was going on. And last but not least, we have ADOS Massachusetts, who I believe they had some testimony going on Friday, or will have some this Friday. I know it's a Friday. Had some testimony going. So I want to give a big shout out to all of our chapters, all of our members across the country. And I know we haven't addressed everyone in a little bit of time. So I just want to throw this quick video up that kind of shows some of the things that our chapters have done. So y'all check it out. Big shout out to our, wasn't it? I looking at those pictures and seeing some of the things they were doing, I was reminded of some of the great work that's been done. I know our Georgia chapter, for instance, drove 2 hours from Atlanta to go talk about land dispossession via eminent domain with the family there, interviewing farmers in that area. We're just seeing so much impactful work. I want to bring up two wonderful folks who are leading chapters, are coordinating chapters in a couple of states. First, I'll bring up our brother Claudio Simpkins, who is a co-state coordinator for the New York chapter. How's it going, Claudio?
I'm just excited to be here. It's a long time since our initial town hall, a conversation, like this, but still, full of hope and wonder as to how we would formulate where we're, what we're building. But now here we are with the whole framework. So I'm excited.
Absolutely. And if y'all had noticed, Claudio has some letters behind his name, and we're he has some letters behind his name.
Look, they only cost about $200,000 in student loans.
I hear that. Well, and we're gonna talk to you in that capacity some today as well. We also have another fierce advocate and chapter coordinator, state coordinator for Massachusetts, our brother Reggie Stewart. I've gotten the opportunity to see Reggie do so much. I actually had an opportunity to go to Boston, where he hosted a listening session, a reparations info session in Roxbury, talking directly to the people. Brother Reggie, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing all right. I'm just happy to be in the presence of such smart, amazing advocates. I'm just happy to be in the same room with you.
Hey, and you one of them, my brother. So we're so happy to have you and all that you continue to bring. Now, if I'm correct, I saw an email go out to Massachusetts members about some action you had going on right now. So you were just prepping the members in Massachusetts around how to provide testimony. Is that correct, my brother?
Yeah, that's correct. You know, we sent a notice out that a hearing on the state reparations bill is coming this week. I believe it's on Tuesday. You know, we'll be sending them out testimony guides. You know, either tonight or tomorrow afternoon, people should have those. You know, not only the chapter membership, but a lot of people who have been in the reparation space, who have been inquiring, who've been advocating. So it's going to go out to a lot of people. You know, watch the hearing; it might be interesting. And
I love that, and I think what a lot of people don't understand is being organized takes some organization. If you want people to show up the right way, that's what the ADOS Advocacy Foundation does. We prepare constituents, we prepare voters, we prepare members to work with their Congress folks, to work with their senators, their state representatives, their city council people, their county commissioners, to advocate on our behalf as ADOS people. It is needed on every single level of government. So a big shout out to both of you. And again, a big shout out to our chapters in Georgia, North Carolina, Maryland, Mississippi, Florida, Missouri, New Jersey, New York, California, Kentucky, and Massachusetts for all of the great work that y'all have done. I've happened to see both of you all provide some type of testimony. I know, Claudio, I saw you provide some great testimony, I believe, for a commission for New York. I don't know if it was a city or state commission, I don't remember, but I saw you and other members from New York providing great testimony. And I saw our brother Reggie have folks lined up to provide testimony in Massachusetts. So for both of you who are working on the ground in states that have active reparations legislation or active reparations commissions, how does having a reparations framework impact your local advocacy? And I'll start with you, Reggie.
Well, it helps a great deal, because when you look around the country, whether on the national level or on the local level, a lot of people are just lost, for lack of a better term. You know, questions come up. How does this work? Who's eligible? What does this look like? What does that look like? So it's helpful to have that framework so that people don't have to reinvent the wheel to say, here, this research has been done. These economic calculations have been done. These proposed departments and how they function and how they interact across existing departments is also there. So it's very helpful to advocates. And it's also, you know, very useful to legislators to say, hey, here's something that I can work with, hence a framework.
Thank you so much for that, Brother Reggie. You're so right, because we can't just yell reparations and not know what it looks like when someone asks. If we don't have something like the ADOS Reparations Framework, the next thing you know, you have programs like they had here in Asheville, North Carolina, or programs like in Evanston, Illinois, that lack any of the teeth and are talking about giving down payments to housing, and it's stopping there in a world where you may be able to get a down payment, but you can't get a mortgage. And so big shout out to doing that work. What about you, Brother Claudio? How has having the framework affected your local advocacy? And to take it a step further, you all just got a mayor-elect who's openly talked about reparations. So how does having this type of framework help you in your advocacy?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. It is there's a moment, a very important political moment. It's an opportunity with the change of, City Hall and the change ideologically from that of a Mayor Adams to a Mayor Mamdani. And, you know, for us, having the framework is something that will cut through all the noise. So it enables us to laser target our advocacy, to focus. It's something that it's a tool that we use at the chapter level to be able to make sure that our message is disciplined, because without that discipline, it's not going to be effective. So we do have a state reparations commission here in New York State that's been rather active in terms of having public meetings and soliciting testimony from members of the public. And over the last couple of months and meetings that we've been to as ADOS AF New York, the different varieties of Pan-Africanism and just other, you know, ideologies that aren't really going to serve our people in this fight that we've come across, it shows how important and how needed it is to have something like the framework that answers the tough questions, that presents the next steps and opens up the path. And it allows us as state coordinators to empower our members to say, hey, listen, you've got this framework, you know what it is, we're all on the same page. Now, like, let's go forth and be really, you know, aggressive advocates in that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've received, in putting out this town hall, we also put out a call for questions. And we received questions from all over the country. And they were some great questions. We received hundreds of questions. To be exact, I think it was 337 questions that we received in the short call that we put out to get questions for this town hall. Obviously, we're not able to answer 337 questions today. So we categorized those questions and took our biggest hits. And so I want to get right to it. I did see a question in the chat that I want to just throw out there. I see somebody in Florida wanting to join the Florida chapter. Go to joinados.com and hit join. And once you become a member, you will be put in that Florida queue and you'll start getting communications from our Florida chapter. If there is not a chapter in your area, that is okay. We still have activities for the entire group. And so for anyone who is interested, please go to joinados.com. You can also scan this QR code right now and get to where you can join the ADOS Advocacy Foundation. I want to get right to these questions because the people asked, and we're here to answer these questions here about the reparations framework. And I want to start with just a really rock bottom question that I think is monumental in our overall fight for reparations and the transformative Black agenda, which is, and I'll ask this one to you, Yvette. I'll put you front and center at the beginning here. So why is lineage so important to the ADOS reparations framework?
Well, we've had this whole thing of flat blackness for a while, right? And it just confuses things because other groups may do better. They may do a few may do worse, but a lot of them really just mask our failure because they don't have the same background. Because we're talking about a very specific group of people. We're talking about American descendants of chattel slavery, people who are up from slavery, sharecropping, Jim Crow. That is a very specific experience that only one group of quote unquote Black people have. And we're only trying to find redress for that group. That is not the Black agenda part of what we're doing. That is the redress part of what we're doing. And if you look at what the Supreme Court said, they have basically said that you can't do anything based on race. We're not doing that. We're not doing Pan-Africanism. We don't have a Pan-African agenda. That's over with. So you have to go to the direction of lineage, which only makes sense because how can you say somebody who just got here, most Africans didn't get here until post 2000, right? So how can you say that somebody who got here in 2001, 2002 has the same experience and is owed the same debt as somebody whose heritage goes back 1619 or 1700, whenever their people came here and they built the country? We have a different history, a different legacy, a different lineage, and we have a different contribution to this country, and we have a different kind of oppression in this country. There are some people who come to this country and that's their best experience in life. Like they did way better in this country than they did in their homeland. That's not our experience. Our experience is multi-generational oppression. So you know that when you think about it that way, lineage becomes key. That is the main cornerstone of any kind of reparations framework that we do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Yvette. I'm going to jump right to our second question. And for this question, I'll ask it to our ADOS-AF Policy Director, Aisha. What role does the federal government versus the state government play in reparations?
Sure. So the federal government is basically the entity ultimately responsible for allowing slavery to persist in the nation and for enabling or turning a blind eye to policies that harm the enslaved and their descendants, right? So it's also the only institution with the authority and resources necessary to enact the comprehensive reparative measures required to address these injustices. Now, and it doesn't mean states have no role. States can play a supportive role by urging the federal government to advance reparations initiatives, conducting and presenting research on their own historical contributions to slavery and other harmful policies. Collecting wealth data is super important that they can participate in, that will illustrate these existing disparities that Yvette just spoke to in terms of the ADOS population not having the same outcomes as an immigrant population in this country. And also, most importantly to me, will be disaggregating racial data at the state and local levels. So the federal government approved data disaggregation based on a number of different racial ethnic categories just last year. And the federal government has about 5 years to implement that across all their forms and all their programs. So I believe by 2029, that should be done. But in the meantime, it would be great if states could do the same thing so that we can measure the difference. It's one thing to say that we have these disparities, but to Yvette's point, as far as like immigrants masking our failure, what she means by that is that we're all basically encompassed in the same data under the same Black racial category. So we have to break that up. What are the ADOS outcomes? What are the Jamaican American outcomes? What are the Haitian American outcomes? What are the Nigerian American outcomes? So once we can measure that and see where those gaps lie, we can be very specific in advocating for policies to basically improve upon those gaps interracially and intraracially.
Absolutely. And hey, there's a comment, Aisha, about your sweatshirt with the crimson smear sweatshirt. And for those that don't know, that was commemorating the ADOS Advocacy Foundation's fight against Harvard University because a paper came out smearing ADOS advocates on the ground, saying that we were Russian bots and saying that we weren't real. They wrote this horrible paper that ended up retracted because advocates on the ground all across the country wrote letters, showed up, delivered letters, emailed, called, and they considered that paper an editorial failure. Because there were so many people. I also saw a comment in the chat, Yvette, about folks talking about you debating someone on lineage. There really isn't a debate about lineage. The question is, do they want reparations to work or not? Because if they're following the Supreme Court, if they're understanding that we're a distinct people and respecting that, there is an actual debate on lineage. So I think the question is, why are some people disguising their disdain for reparations in the form of wanting to open it up to a bunch of folks? All right, I'll move to the next question here. And now, Yvette, if you want to debate, but I don't think
I want to debate, but I don't want to debate that. I would rather debate lineage with somebody white who is opposed to reparations. Like, I think that's the next step in that debate. The debate is not me debating somebody who is pro Pan-Africanism, because that's a non-starter now. We're past that. We've moved past that.
I think that I'd even contend that how can you even call yourself a Pan-African and not support the Africans in America who are fighting the biggest and baddest government that the world has ever seen. I'd argue that we have a lot of fake Pan-Africans out there who call themselves Pan-African as a form of escapism instead of being Pan-African by supporting the American descendants of slavery. And I think it is a colonial mindset to want to take over the identity that we built over 400 years in this country and have us look back to Mecca instead of looking back to Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia. So I'd argue that true Pan-Africanism should support ADOS and the ADOS Advocacy Foundation.
Are you saying that Pan-Africanists are out here supporting everybody and Uganda, Brazil, Papua New Guinea, everywhere except here in America?
Look, everybody but their grandparents. It's nasty as you want to make it. So I ain't even trying to have that debate no more, because how can you say that you love African people and leave American ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, here to fight the baddest government that you say is imperialistic and all those things, but you want to tuck tail and run when it comes time to fight them here in the United States. So the fight for reparations is here, and it's the fight for the American Descendants of Slavery. I think I have another question here. Let me pull it up, and I'm actually going to answer this one. Let me calm down. I done ramped up.
Cool off first.
Yeah, I done ramped up.
Cool off first, Simeon.
You know what I mean? I done ramped up.
I said it, Simeon. Why you calm down? Some of y'all will know all the tribes in Africa about hoodoo and all that stuff, but you don't know your great granddaddy name. You don't know your great grandmama name. So let's just, everybody who thinks that way should just calm your brakes. You ready, Simeon?
I'm ready. I done drank some Negro tea. It's elderberry. So I've drank a little tea.
Insides, right? That's the healing right there.
I'm feeling good. So this next question is, what is the projected timeline for achieving reparations? I kind of want to flip that question a little bit, because what's the projected timeline for you to get your whole family on board in this fight? What is the projected timeline for us to get our churches mobilized in this fight, talking about justice? What is the projected timeline for you to meet with your city council person and start doing proclamations acknowledging the fight and the efforts of ADOS in that city, state, or county? I think, the politics and the political winds move so many different ways, and our big focus has to be when we can build the pressure to push our representatives, push our senators, push our president at any given administration to the fight for reparations. This is not like a short fight where you get to yell reparations one day and it happens. If that was the case, it would have happened with Queen Mother Moore. It would have happened with all of those that came before us. So it is our duty to make it happen in our generation. So I'd argue the projected timeline is when we build up the needed pressure. Because again, as Yvette Carnell always say, politicians respond to pressure, not applause. Does anyone else on the panel want to take that question for a spin?
Well, yeah, I mean, the what you said about pressure versus applause, that as you go out and advocate and build your numbers, eventually it gets to a point, this is even speaking from experience, that the ADOS pressure gets into the room before you do. So you have to continue that drumbeat of advocacy and relationship building with your representatives. And like Simeon said, the timeline for which that shift happens depends on you on the ground where you are. So if you're looking for the timeline is right there in that mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brother Reggie. I'm going to put Aisha back on the hot seat. Look at that swap. I'm going to throw Aisha back on there. As the author of this framework, what are the next steps in pursuing reparations for ADOS? Let me throw that question up on the screen as well for our guest at home. What are the next steps in pursuing ADOS reparations?
It's a good question. And you and Reggie pretty much started it off, right? But I'll say from the ADOS Advocacy Foundation perspective, the next steps include continuing our assessment of potential law firms. with the goal of hiring a firm by the end of Q1 2026, in and around there. So I'm currently evaluating a range of firms based on several criteria. Once the list is narrowed down to about 3 finalists, the executive team will determine which firm to engage and potentially hire. One key criterion is demonstrate a history of advocating for historically disenfranchised communities. Another is the strength of the firm's relationship with legislators, which will be essential in securing bill sponsors. So as I'm sure everyone knows, or if you don't know, any potential bill, you can write 1,000 bills, but if you don't have someone to bring it to the floor and to sponsor it, it won't move anywhere. And then you have to have a certain number of people to sponsor it for it to go to committee. So, and to get out of committee. So you need support. And so that's part of the next steps on our end. And so once that bill is ready, and that I'm not sure how long that would take. It could take months. We just don't know until we actually hire a firm and get more of a timeline going there. But once that's done, it's going to take everyone on this program and everyone in your communities to make the phone calls, to encourage your Congress people to support this bill, to read the bill, to understand the bill, and to give feedback. So it's going to take every single one of us to actually move this forward. But again, in terms of the org standpoint, it's hiring a firm to write the bill.
Absolutely. Because it's one thing to advocate, but you got to have a bill. And we know HR 40 is not a bill that needs to be pushed forward because it doesn't wholly address what's needed. And so I love that the ADOS Advocacy Foundation is taking it on. It's kind of also sad that our politicians haven't authored new legislation, and that you needed a group like the ADOS Advocacy Foundation to come and say, we're going to take this on to author legislation. And now we're going to need everyone to apply that type of pressure to get it passed in both the House or the Senate, which leads us to our next question. And it's kind of a continuation from the previous 2 questions. So Reggie, you know, from an on the ground perspective, what do we do to get this type of bill, once it's written, passed in both the House or the Senate?
Well, number one, like stated earlier, you know, it's one thing to yell reparations, it's another thing to offer a framework. So I think it's incumbent upon people who have that question in their mind to buy the framework. Buy the framework, understand what it is you want your representative to do, because once the bill is put together, that will make you that much more of an effective advocate. And then number 2, it sounds very basic, but it's worth repeating because we have not seen a critical mass of Black people across America engaging in this activity. Who is your representative? Who is your senator? If you want Congress to pass something, you have to engage your representatives in Congress to do that thing. So it goes back to doing the work of identifying your representative, to building that relationship with your representative, because they're not in Washington, D.C. all the time. They're often in district. Find out where they are, engage them, build that relationship, join a chapter. And as we move forward together, that's how we'll build the support that's needed to pass what we need.
Absolutely. You can't make up momentum. You have to actually be there to have that momentum. It's not an imaginary thing. And it's going to take all of us here, all of us listening, all of the members, even folks who aren't members. This framework can help get us all on the same accord. Yeah. The next question I have for Yvette, because we're really in a scenario, I'd argue one of the most hostile scenarios that we've seen from a government perspective. How do we deal with the challenges that we may face from the GOP and non-progressive Democrats in the legislative body?
Well, the thing is, I think everybody needs to understand that everything's changed, right? It was very interesting to see Trump with Mamdani, right? Because you have this president who was buoyed by wealth, billionaires, and you have populists who believe that the world should change and it shouldn't be the way it is. And you have Mamdani who was saying, listen, I'm throwing away all of this Bill Clinton-esque triangulation. No, the rent's too high and buses should be free, right? So I think the way you speak to people on the left and the way you speak to Democrats is the same in the sense of, hey, triangulation is off. We're going to deal with the needs of people, and we're going to deal with things that should have happened that never did happen. And reparations is one of those things. Now, I think you have to help white folk understand that we're not going to take something from you and then give it to ourselves and you are left there dealing with whatever. We believe in the class-based stuff. We believe with the Mamdami in terms of, hey, there has to be a class-based solution. White people are having problems too. There are struggles for you too. And we can be in solidarity in that. And when you talk to the GOP, I think you have to tell them, like, hey, how long do you want to play this game? How long do you just want to continue to make race jokes and to have us be the butt of things? Do you want a country that is harmonious or not? I mean, do you want to really move past this path of just protest to actual people power or not? And so if we can get to the or not with at least a minority of them, we have some daylight. But I think politics, what you see when you see the left and the right now, is that politics has changed. We're in a transformative place now, as opposed to a triangulation place in politics. And that's something that we should be able to speak to and take advantage of with both political parties and the left and the moderates and the centrists and the right wingers too. That's something that there's always something there that we can kind of negotiate with and on.
So basically, we have to engage everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
We have to engage everybody. You know, John Henry Clark used to say, you know, we don't have permanent friends or enemies. We just have permanent interests. And I've heard a bunch of people say that throughout time. And our interests, we have to engage whatever party's in power at any given time, as well as the party that's fighting against that party. So I have a real appreciation from that answer. Aisha, this was probably one of the biggest questions that we received on our questionnaire. And I think with all that we've seen in society, there was this writer that wrote a book, and you had a particular year ingrained in everyone's mind. And so the reparations framework, it's broken out in phases, and phase one starts in 1776. So the question we received was, when identifying harms, why start in 1776 instead of 1619?
Very important question and a very good question, right? So at the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, we chose to begin with 1776 because, for one, that's the year our nation was founded. That's when we went from being a colony to a nation, a country. So our founders had the opportunity to establish a nation free of slavery. As we know, they chose not to, right? So since our current claim in phase one focuses on American chattel slavery, it's appropriate to begin our analysis at the birth of the United States. That said, phase two or phase three should absolutely address colonial slavery. However, because America was in a collection of colonies, such claims would involve multiple European powers. We're talking from the Dutch to the Spanish, the French, the British. It's a lot. And this is an important fight, but one that requires strategic timing and sufficient resources. And for those reasons, we prioritize U.S. chattel slavery in phase one. Number one is our country. So we're going up against our own nation to have this reparations program go through. And the hope is that this could be a domino effect, right? So we go through phase one, then we get to phase two. And again, phase two could either be that colonial slavery that does begin in 1619, or phase two could potentially be all the post-Jim Crow era issues that we had with the segregation, the redlining, the mass incarceration, everything up to present day that we still deal with, right? And if there is another organization, if there's another group of people who want to take on that fight and start a phase two or a phase three, I have no problem with that. More power to you. If you want to start in 1619 and deal with those colonial powers and start to make that case, have at it, right? I just tend to think that working with our government as it is, and as it has been since 1776, is the best way forward for us at this moment and with this movement.
I really appreciate how you laid that out, because at 1776, the founders could have said, "Hey guys, we've been doing this and it's real messed up. We've been tearing people up. We've been killing them. We've been force breeding. We've been importing them in chains. We've been throwing them off of boats. We've been taking advantage of women, black women,
And men.
we've been killing children. We've been taking advantage of men. We have been separating families." They could have said, "Enough is enough, y'all. We need to do something different," but they didn't.
And they could have blamed it on the Brits. Said that's a British thing. That's a
We're not doing that no more.
We are in a new world, right? And we're doing things differently. Like they could have easily, cleaned the slate, and that just didn't happen. So here we are. Like I would have loved for this to have been resolved way back when. Would have loved it. You know what I mean?
They hated the idea of a king more than they hated the idea of enslaving their fellow humans. That's all.
Absolutely.
That's
Priorities.
Priorities.
And it's amazing that they can write founding documents and they can write pledges with liberty and justice while denying justice for the American descendants of slavery. They could have done it right. They could have done it right. So I have a high appreciation for this 1776 as a starting point. And it also just makes sense because it is the United States of America. And that's when it was founded. That's when they received their independence. I
would also
go
say,
ahead, Reggie.
I would also say if some people are worried about what about the money that was made and this and that, well, the 13 colonies, I'm pretty sure they brought all of their wealth with them, all of their slaves with them. So the value that you may be looking for, it's already carried over into 1776 anyway, in terms of how the 13 colonies. And like I said, the colonial powers, if y'all want to go get them, go get them. But I'm in America, and Washington, D.C. is right there. So let's start where we start.
Yep.
And it's the big fight. It's the real fight. So I love that the ADOS Advocacy Foundation has tackled that fight. My next question is to our brother Claudio here. Obviously you got some letters behind your name, so I'll do this introductory, and those letters, you know what I mean? And it's not just for being a smooth brother.
Yeah.
It's Esquire, and not like just smooth, but schooled and some other stuff. You passed in bars and everything. So one of the questions was, do we have attorneys available to assist ADOS in the fight of reparations?
Yeah, and I appreciate that question. I think having attorneys, ADOS attorneys, playing a key role in strategy and in litigating so many of the foundational cases that paved the way towards the civil rights that we have been able to obtain so far. That's always been something that's key to what our people have been able to, the tools that we've been able to utilize. Right now, I don't know that we have as many ADOS attorneys as we would think, definitely not as many as we would want or need. But even having an understanding of how many of those attorneys we have is hampered by the fact that we don't have disaggregated data. So if you wanted to know how many of the Black law students at an NYU, a Columbia, a Harvard, a Georgetown, or any other school are ADOS versus being, from a different lineage or background, most of those private universities aren't going to give you that data, but even if they self-reported in some way, chances are it's not disaggregated. So we're in a tough spot with that. But, I think the ways in which we're going to be active legally, the big way in which everybody, understands us to probably likely be need to be active is when there is a challenge to the reparations bill that we have floating around Congress, whether it's before it's passed or right after it's passed, and there's an attempt to implement it. That's where you'll likely see a big constitutional challenge. And that's why lineage is so important versus race. Not only has the Supreme Court already said that race is not going to be able to be something that can be used as a foundation for a program such as reparations. As Yvette has explained, like, it just doesn't make sense. It's a blunt instrument, it's imprecise, and it's going to lead to all kinds of unfair outcomes if you're trying to make redress for a specific harm to a specific group over a set period of time. And that's where lineage does come in constitutionally, because, you know, the idea, the test that any program is going to have to pass or survive is called strict scrutiny. And part of that test is something that looks at whether the program is narrowly tailored enough to achieve whatever, you know, really important policy goal is trying to be achieved by using something such as lineage. And so lineage is the most narrowly tailored. It's perfectly tailored in that it's an intergenerational harm that we've suffered and still suffer to this day in different ways than our ancestors suffered. But because it's passed down through the generations, within families, within communities, no matter how scattered and dispersed they might have been at different instances, it's something that the idea of lineage is going to capture exactly what we needed to capture. And that's what's going to give it a chance to survive at the Supreme Court, where something like race is just, it's dead on arrival.
And I love, real quick, I love that you jumped into that, because that next question was, why can't race be the basis for a constitutionally viable reparations plan? And I think you just kind of, you nailed that. And I also want to shout out, we do have a few lawyers within the ADOS Advocacy Foundation who do great work for us, with Claudio being one of them. So if you are an attorney and you're looking to get involved in this fight, we want to hear from you. We want you to join, and we want you to join our team of legal scholars that are making sure that we're lining up constitutionally. So, Claudio, I know you have an ADOS Foundation email. How can people get in touch with you if they're interested in adding their skills to this fight for reparations, specifically attorneys?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we would appreciate all the support we can get on this front. But for those of you who are law students or aspiring law students, if you're law clerks or you're practicing attorneys, retired attorneys, legal researchers or professors, paralegals as well, and are immensely important. And the idea is that, you know, we longer term need to be able to provide the legal support for what we've put forth in the reparations framework. We can anticipate what some of the challenges will be coming from other groups, because we see what the challenges have been to affirmative action programs, to DEI, even though it doesn't serve us at all, you know, in many respects. So we can start to anticipate that. And from what I see, you know, like you have for strict scrutiny, you're going to have that narrowly tailored aspect that we have to address, which we do through lineage. But then there's also the harm aspect. You know, the Supreme Court would interrogate what are the harms that serve as the foundation or the justification, the basis of this claim, you know, for redress. And do we recognize these as legitimate, you know, harms that were suffered because of a government action or a government omission, a failure to act when it owed us a duty as citizens? And so that's something that is an economic study, that's a legal history study, that's a, you know, kind of, that's where the data is so important, disaggregated data, being able to tie the harms that we suffer now, all the deprivations that we have to endure, and show, just as Yvette and so many more leaders in this movement on Twitter and in person and in chapters and online and in books, connecting those dots and tying all of this back to slavery. And to the extent we can do that and we push on lineage, we're able to survive strict scrutiny. But if you try to lean on race, if you try to rely on that, if you're hoping that that's going to give you a leg to stand on, it's not going to, and nor should it.
And we've already seen that, haven't we? I mean, we've seen the justices signal a certain type of way. And so what is, you kind of talked about it a little bit earlier about just the need for legal work in this area. And a lot of people immediately go to lawsuits.
Yeah.
But can you talk a little bit about the type of legal work that's needed in this area? Like if there were a bunch of paralegals, if there are a bunch of attorneys, what type of legal work is needed here post the reparations bill?
Yeah, certainly. I think the main thinking that people have as far as a big courtroom battle is around the constitutionality of our proposed bill or our program. But around that, there would be a lot of other legal work that needs to be done. There would be legal work that relates to the genealogical work that needs to be done, right? What do you do when you have a county clerk who says, I don't believe ADOS deserve reparations, and so I'm going to call myself being civilly disobedient, and I'm not going to open up any of the county records to any of you who are trying to establish your eligibility by proving your lineage, right? You need an attorney who's going to take that county clerk to the courthouse and get an injunction or get an order, so there's myriad different types of cases and types of legal actions that may arise out of the program. And none of that is all of that is to be expected, to be planned for, is planned for in many ways, but the man and woman power that it's going to take, the people power that it's going to take is going to be on the legal front is going to be a lot of research. Ideally, it would be the publication of legal academic works. And I think that there's a great opportunity for people to really start to think through these constitutional questions, but think through the data questions of how do we explain the harm and the connection from the government's action to today and where we are. There's going to be all these opportunities for research, but there will be a requirement also for us to litigate throughout this process.
Thank you so much. Reggie, I know you had a comment on that as well.
No, it wasn't a comment. It was just a question for Claudio. Could you tell us where you went to law school and how that should inform how that should inform whether or not somebody wants to play with you in particular?
Yeah, it was up by you actually. It's this small town called Cambridge, Massachusetts. Small university, Harvard University. Little known law school, Harvard Law School. In the words of Elle Woods, like it's hard. But no, so I went to Harvard Law School and I wanted to be a constitutional litigator. Thurgood Marshall is a hero. I'm sitting here, some of these First Amendment litigators, these constitutional litigators are my heroes. And I'm, at that time and to this date, I'm a huge kind of nerd about the Supreme Court, about the justices specifically. So when I got to Harvard Law School, I intended to be a constitutional lawyer. And I, put myself in a position where I was able to meet Supreme Court justices and kind of meet the feeder judges that feed into them, and to understand kind of it's a whole, society and it's power. It's those access networks of access and power where you get placed from a law school into a clerkship that leads into an appellate clerkship that leads you into Scalia's office or, Kavanaugh's office, or even, Sotomayor's office as a clerk. And then all those folks go back into the law firms and they write all the briefs. And essentially, it's like a little cabal that is fashioning constitutional and administrative law because they're the in crowd, they're the experts, they're all buddy-buddy with each other. They all clerk with each other's judges. Those are mentors and mentees. And it's a very exclusive club to get into. So if that club is determined, hey, we're not doing reparations, that's not happening, race is over, we're not, finding any of these programs based on race to be constitutional, then it's on us to create another path. And that's what the work is. Okay, cool. Well, we'll make the legal case based on lineage.
It's good that you're in that room then, I guess.
All the ops, I'm gonna be like, yo, y'all, I remember y'all from school. Okay. You were gonna see me one way or another.
Yeah, I this fight needs every level of ADOS society.
Yes.
We have, as part of the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, we have beauticians, we have plumbers, we have cable installers, we have insurance adjusters, we have janitors, we have call center representatives, we have folks who are caregivers, we have retired folks, we have lawyers, We have healthcare professionals. We have the range of ADOS society represented within our membership. And it's been really wonderful to see so many educated ADOS folks take on in an academic space. I think about the ADOS Research Institute, which is an institute created by ADOS academics to further the fight in academia around the need for disaggregation, around highlighting the needs of the American descendants of slavery. And as someone just put in the chat, it's community. That is our community. And so it has to represent every single aspect of our community. We fight for Black male employment. We fight for Black maternal health. We fight for Black children, Black families. We fight for the gambit of it. And we have a full Black agenda that deals in agriculture, business, cannabis, you name it. It deals with immigration. It deals with every single aspect of how ADOS are impacted here in the United States. We also have chapters who have Black agendas for their state, which is super important. And that's part of the reason why we also have some of our state coordinators represented here today. I'll throw this question to you, Reggie, because it's also a question that I hear a lot when I go around and join chapter meetings and talk to chapter members. And that's, how do chapters connect their disaggregation advocacy with the ADOS reparations framework?
Well, in order to make reparations work in a 21st century America that's wildly diverse, disaggregation is a must. So that's kind of where you start, to where your city level, state level, where is the disaggregated data, and just informing and educating them that this actually makes you better and more effective legislators, not just in terms of reparations, but in terms of everybody else. And it's been very useful, even in terms of Boston and Massachusetts, which is wildly diverse, because in addition to descendants of slavery, you have other people who have come to the country at different times, for different reasons, under different circumstances, with a different set of needs. So from our perspective, disaggregation not only helps descendants of slavery, which should have primacy in the conversation, but it helps America generally.
Absolutely. I think people minimize how important disaggregation is. And in this fight, and I think from a legal perspective, and Claudio, feel free to jump in here. You wouldn't sue Pepsi if a Coca-Cola truck hit you, right? Like if I'm driving and a Coca-Cola truck hits me, what sense does it make for me to go sue Pepsi? So we have to have, and it wouldn't make sense for the person next to me who didn't get hit to try to get in on my lawsuit and turn around and say, well, I know I didn't get hit by the truck, but man, it looked like that was a rough hit. I felt it too. I could hear it. It went boom. Like that's not enough, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, like there's the legal concept of proximate cause. So it's like when something goes down and you're looking for compensation, you're looking for redress, looking for justice. The court wants to know that when you were harmed, what happened to you was kind of something that was foreseeable. It was something that was within reason, that, hey, if the acting party, if the US government decides that they're going to treat us the way they've treated us for 400 years, then these are the consequences that are going to come of it. When you take an approach to, some kind of justice that relies on not, data that's not disaggregated, and you're just looking at a flat Black population, and you're trying to, make that connection for the reparations claim of the harms that are suffered. Well, in a lot of ways, certain groups of Black folks are doing a heck of a lot better than we are. And so you get, what Yvette has talked about as far as masking, some of our failure is masked by how other Black groups do. But in addition, you're not going to be able to prove the necessary causality or connection between that government action of enslaving our ancestors and everything that came with it to enforce that system over generations and the harms that we've suffered. If you're gonna, say, go to a legislator or go to a court and say, hey, listen, all the Black folks are messed up in the game. That's why you should give, compensation. It's just not gonna work.
Absolutely. Aisha, let me throw you back in the hot seat over here real quick. Boom. You right here. I was about to say, let's get to the monies, because there have been a lot of questions around money. But before we do that, and for folks who have the reparations framework in front of them, I'd like you all to open up to page 4, because I want Aisha to talk about what's there on page 4. So the question that I'd like to go through next is, can you talk us through the ADOS reparations eligibility criteria?
Sure. As Simeon said, it's in page 4. So if you have the book, please go there. Also, in looking at the chart on page 4, in column 3, if you were, and God bless you if you were, but if you were maybe the first 1 to 150 people who purchased the book, the or in column 3 may be a little light for you, and you may have misread that. So there is a or in column 3, and right now our media director Kalik is on vacation, so he can't post it on our website. But when he comes back, I will ask him to do that. But in the meantime, in between time, if you have purchased the book, one of those first 150 people, and you got the lighter or, and you want the clear document immediately, feel free to email me, and I'll send it off to you at policy@adosfoundation.org. And all you have to do, put in the subject line, eligibility criteria. Also, because I don't want to skip this, Claudio, you forgot to mention your email address where lawyers can reach out to you. I do want to get that on the record before I enter the rest, if you want to just say how they can reach you.
As soon as you said yours, I realized that. So it's Claudio@ADOSfoundation.org. So that's CLAUDIO.
Okay.
And that's lawyers, paralegals, legal professionals.
Yes.
If you are working in that field, we have work for you here. So
yes.
Please reach out. Again, that's Claudio@ADOSfoundation.org, CLAUDIO@ADOSfoundation.org. All right. Now, rocking out on the eligibility here, because this is probably one of the most it shouldn't be contentious. We talked about why, because I mean, were you in the car that the Pepsi truck hit or not? we already talked about why, but talk us through the eligibility criteria. And before that, I also know this was a very contentious item, even as the foundation was developing its criteria. So can you talk through that criteria?
Absolutely. So in our first column, if you have the book again, the farthest to the left, it has the you must. So these are the things that are non-negotiable. It just has to be the case, or it just is a non-starter, right?
And it's page 4. Someone
4.
asked in the chat, it's page 4 in the book if you have it in front of you.
Mm-hmm. So I'll read it just to be very clear. You must be a lifelong citizen of the United States of America, and throughout your lifespan have identified as Negro, colored, Black, or African American. You are barred if you have ever identified as anything other than Negro, colored, Black, or African American on any official government, employment, banking, or education verification documents. So you basically just have to be one of us, okay? And you have to have that. So this gets to that lived
run off.
Right. So this gets to that lived experience that we were talking about, and that Simeon used the metaphor regarding the Pepsi truck, right? So is that you have lived the experience of being a Black person, and you have identified that way in this country. And just to skip down to the next box, presents a U.S. government issued ID ID, birth certificate, death certificate, military, or census record that identifies a direct ancestor as Negro, colored, Black, or African American before 1965. So this is just your lineage, what we've been talking about. So it's not just your lived experience, right? Because a few people may fall under that first category who isn't ADOS. But then we got to wrap it in tightly with the fact that you have to have a mother, a father, a grandmother, a grandfather, a great
inherited experience.
Yes, that has gone through the life of a Black American, right? Of that segregation, of that Jim Crow, of that slavery, of that Reconstruction failing. So they have lived that experience as well. And if you think, kind of pass it on down to you, right? So if
inherited plunder, that inherited plunder.
If your daddy was Poe, more than likely you Poe too, right? So yeah. And then the second column is the and. So first column, everything has to check off yes for you. And just to be clear, I do define it in the book, but a direct ancestor is someone who has direct lineage relations to you. So that parent-child relationship, and then it goes to grandparent, grandchild, but it does not include aunts, uncles, and cousins. That's not a direct line. Okay. So, and the and is you're able to trace your ancestry to at least one person identified as Negro, colored, or Black and enslaved in the United States of America between 1776 and 1865. Again, that goes through the years that it was American slavery. So that's why those years are there. And if they were enslaved, then they would have been called Negro, colored, or Black. And if you read the book, and certainly please get the book if you haven't, we have a whole section in the book talking about how our Department of ADOS Affairs will assist you in finding your lineage. The idea is not for you to do this on your own. The idea, I mean, if you have the documents, if your family has been really great about collecting these things or going back, that's amazing. Hold on to that stuff, store that stuff. But the idea for our framework is that the government will assist us and assist you if need be in finding that history. But let's just say by chance, you cannot find that history. You just can't find those documents. To Claudio's point, there's a woman somewhere at some desk somewhere who won't open up the files, the documents. Then you go to that third column, and that's that or again. So or pick two from this column, which is that last column. And there's several different options here. Identify one direct ancestor on the 1870 census record who was identified as Black or mulatto. Of course, some of you may know that's the first census where we were counted. Or you could trace one direct ancestor to the American Revolution, the War of 1812, or the Civil War, who was identified as Negro, colored, or Black on their official government war record. Okay, so basically just going back to different periods and time that if you were here and you were called Negro, Black, whatever, you were enslaved or from the enslaved, or maybe you were a freed person as well, but you certainly wasn't enjoying freedoms as such as your white comrades would have been doing or enjoying. Locate one direct ancestor in a will, insurance, or probate record in which they were described as property and Negro, colored, or Black between 1776 and 1877. So that's up to that Reconstruction period, or up and through that Reconstruction period. Identify one direct ancestor who was a sharecropper and described as Negro, colored, or Black in the United States between 1865 and 1877. Or finally, identify one direct ancestor who experienced convict leasing and was described as Negro, colored, or Black. So we try to give as many options as possible that makes sense, that if you were in any of those categories, you likely descended from the enslaved folks in this country, to make it as easy as possible to link yourself to this claim. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Aisha. Hey, it is on page 4, and that's one of the good things about this ADOS reparations framework is it answers all of those questions about what reparations should look like. I'm going to take a quick moment to throw this graphic back on the screen. This is where you can buy this book. It is a sit down and read. You can read it in one sitting, but I promise you, you will think on it much longer than that. Each book purchase goes to supporting the ADOS Advocacy Foundation's mission of securing reparations and a transformative Black agenda. Again, we are in process right now via our Justice for Generations campaign in trying to have a ADOS reparations bill built or created off of this exact framework. And so we're operating in a full level of transparency about what we believe reparations should be. And this wasn't just like one person saying it should be this way. It was a large group of people from across the country who sat and wrestled with these premises, pulled academic work and so forth about what reparations should be. And so we want you to rock with us. I see somebody in chat, they a little bit wilding. So I'm not gonna, you know, they're a little bit wilding, and I can tell that they might be a little bit new. And maybe they, you know, heard about us, but haven't actually taken the time to go to adosfoundation.org. So if you are new to the fight for reparations, specifically the ADOS Foundation's fight for reparations, please go to adosfoundation.org. We also have a reparations FAQ on the site that answers some of these questions, and the framework went into way more detail. So I saw somebody asking, I'm gonna put it up there. Hey man, it is your first time here. He putting it here. I'm gonna show you some love. You was a little wilding, but I think your heart is good. I'm gonna show you some love, yo. So you asked specifically, is ADOS demanding direct cash payments for reparations? And the comment right under you said 20 trillion. That even though the trillion is spelled a little different, I understand that's how it goes when you type. And someone else said 20 trillion is the down payment, and that's exactly right. So the ADOS Advocacy Foundation is fighting for reparations, and the goal is to close the racial wealth gap. And so we 100% support cash payments. As a matter of fact, we don't consider it reparations if there isn't a cash payment component. And we say that down payment is $20 trillion. And it has to continue until that wealth gap is closed, and not just closed in a minute, but closed over time. And so my next question here, and shout out to you, Uptight. I see you shouted out the people who gave you the answers. So I know it's your first time here. I'm
Simeon, you didn't have to put them on the Summer Jam screen.
Yeah, I put them.
That's what he do.
It's a good question. Yo, it's a good question. You was a little wild in the chat. But nonetheless, yo, it's a really good question, and it's an important one. And I wanted to make sure it was represented, and we didn't skip over that. Yeah. Yes, we support cash payments. We believe it starts at $20 trillion, but it can't just be cash payments. It has to be even more. We talk about the loss of intellectual property. We talk about the loss of land. We talk about all of those things. So make sure you get your copy of the ADOS Reparations Framework. So you can speak about this type of thing in detail. And I think you should even take it a step further and join the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, so you can put some words behind those chats and advocate directly in your community and organize with people around you. So let's get to the monies, Aisha. We talked about eligibility. We done talked about lineage. We talked about why it's needed and disaggregation. Let's start at the $20 trillion. If $20 trillion in cash reparations were approved, how would the money be distributed? And then a sub question, would each adult receive an individual payment, or would payments be given to families to share?
Okay, so a couple of things here. Let's see where I want to start. Okay, at the age. So for one, the framework, the ADOS Reparations Framework book explains that the individual, in order to receive a reparations distribution, they have to be at least 25 years old. So I'll just start there. So it's not 18, it's 25 at minimum, unless, and it's in the book, there are a couple of waivers that can happen. Like, for example, if you are underage and you are experiencing homelessness, if you're unhoused, then you can certainly petition the DAA, Department of ADOS Affairs, to, get some of your money to be able to get housed, right? If you are trying to go to college and you can't afford it, and there's no grants or anything that's available, then there's another way for you to potentially petition the DAA to get a waiver to get some of those funds, if it makes sense and all the things align. So that's where we start. And again, the $20 trillion down payment is just that, a down payment. And but that's not the max. If you read in the book there, I share several equations on how we get to what the amount owed is, and that's just a cash component based off of the labor loss, or the money loss due to enslaved folks' labor. But there are other components there. There's a land component there that we want to have ADOS land trust. And what would be in that land trust would be a mix of certain types of property. There would be opportunities for folks to buy land. There will be opportunities for folks to just, if you don't want to be a landowner, but you want to on the land that's in the community trust, it should have equity. It should be being able to create and develop wealth. So there would be a component that folks would get a dividend off of that as well. And that would be more of a direct payment. The dividends will be. In terms of the money from the labor, that would be in a managed investment portfolio. Okay. And so what I have in the book, and this is at a minimum, by the way, is that it will have to be in an investment portfolio for at least 6 months to be able to build some interest. And that may change. Let's say we get reparations in 10 years and the situation on the ground is totally different. And in order to really make it make sense, you need more time to build enough, to build more money off of your money, right? So then maybe you don't need 6 months, maybe you need 9 months, maybe you need a year. And I know people want to fight us on that, but the idea is that it's a wealth building tool that you can have forever. And so there will be an opportunity for a percentage of the principal and or interest can be drawn down by the beneficiary after that 6 or 9 months or 1 year of the money being in a managed portfolio so that it's growing. I mentioned on the podcast that Simeon and I did before the book was out is that the idea of reparations is not to be a one and done sort of program or opportunity. It is to sustain us as a community. It is to sustain not just one generation, but several generations. So it's not just for you. Think about this being for you, for your kids, for your grandkids, for your great-great-grands, and thereafter, right?
You have multi-generational oppression. You just can't be like, well, bloop, and just be over with. No.
Cannot be over with. So that's why, because I know I've read some comments about people saying, well, why can't I get all my money? Why I got to go? Well, because it just has to. Because we want this thing to last. Because we I think as adults, we all pretty much understand. And if you watch any Dateline about a lottery when the winnings go and then they're back being broke within like 6 months to a year, and they don't know how to manage that money. But if you haven't had this level of wealth, then you don't really know how to manage it. Even if you think you know, you may have a financial planner, but not a financial planner that deals with millions of dollars, right? For one client. So the way we think about money, the way we interact with money, the amount of respect even you have to kind of give to what that money can do and can take, because it can create problems too. So that's why we have so many protections in this book to help prevent a lot of those sort of catastrophes, unfortunately, that tend to happen when people are they come into great wealth or they gifted great wealth and they aren't really prepared for that. So for a group of people who as a group, we haven't had it. And as a group, we don't really know how to manage it. That's going to take time. It's going to take time to build a community of people who know how to manage wealth. And so that's why the Department of ADOS Affairs will have wealth managers. It will have economists. It will have all kinds of people to help us do this as right as it can be done, right?
So what about financial? Yeah, people. It's funny when people talk about financial literacy. You'll hear people talk about financial literacy. And you don't know anything really about financial literacy without finance. right? Because the thing about it is, I will hear ADOS people say, "Well, I'm good with money." No, you feel like you're good with money because you never had none, right? And it's just like you've never had to manage money. People who manage wealth well are people who have had wealth. And if you have been oppressed multi-generationally, like you were talking about, it's unfair then to just only give money to one generation. Like, this has to be a thing where the kids are not left out. So it's not just like it comes here, it gets it. Who's ever in this generation that gets it, and they get it, everybody else just gets to move on, or everybody else is locked out. Well, your mama got it now. She went to the Invest Fest, and she went to the Essence Fest, and she bought a motorcycle and a sports car, and now we finished. Like, it cannot be that. And we have to kind of bring people up into wealth. That's what it has to be. Wealth, people are good with money because they've had it and they've been taught. They go to wealth building trainings and all sorts of things. And we don't really understand or know how the wealthy live because we never had no wealth. We think, I'm good with money. I know how I can go to the store and get some beans and some bread. Yeah, because you have always had to go to the store $50. Like, it's not.
And we're talking about way more than $50.
If I could say something to piggyback up on that, like what we're talking about is not an indictment on Black people's financial behavior, because when the talk of financial literacy, we do save more than whites, so we manage what we have. But when we're talking about this wealth at this scale, everyone has money managers. It's like, I know there's this talking point out there that white people are just naturally smart and savvy. No, they're not smart either. And this is coming from someone who has worked in real estate for over a decade, who has engaged people in the financial sector, who has engaged financial managers, who has, been around families with billions who tell me the story that my grandfather had someone managing the assets in my trust fund before I was born. So this is the sort of infrastructure that we have to catch up to, something that someone's grandchild has been given before they even conceived or thought of. That's what we're competing against. And that is what these protective measures are designed to do, to protect and to grow that wealth. And just kind of for context, thinking past yourself, thinking about your children and grandchildren, assuming that, 20 trillion or so, you divide that by how many ADOS people, maybe
It's 500,000 for the county.
500,000. If you, and this is just the data, we're data people. If you look at the S&P, the S&P 500, the stock market, since its inception up until now, year over year, the rate of return is 6% adjusted. If you have a child or a grandchild and that 500,000 hits and you leave it alone till they're 25, that is a $2.1 million conversation. So this is the level that we're playing at when we're talking about rolling this out here.
And I think a lot of people don't understand that this is designed to replace the wealth that we never got to touch as a result. And that is a multi-generational thing. That is not just one generation's worth of money. And so I find it interesting. I see some folks in the chat. They're like, hey, I want mine direct. They act like I can't handle it. Everyone's cool with financial literacy if it's somebody selling some classes while you broke. I find that so amazing. So we'll go to Earn Your Leisure and be like, financial literacy is so important. But when it comes to getting $500,000 for your family, you don't need it no more. I think that is completely wild. I know that part of what we have to do as a community is protect reparations when it's here. And I love that the framework is directly talking about growing the money and protecting the money and ensuring that it lasts over generations. I want to move. We're at.
I'm sorry, Simeon,
please.
Because I think everybody needs to understand too. The vipers are going to come out.
Mhm.
Like the minute reparations are paid, the predators and predatory loans, and here's a great business idea for you that's going to quadruple that money in 60 days. Those people are going to come out, and I think because we've never been here before as a group, it would be easy for people to like, oh my God, that's what I want to do. That's talking about what I do, and I want to build the money. We just want you to be able to protect it. We want you to be able to keep it, pass things down, have stability. That's the thing that we want to do. And I think, I think we're moving. What we have here and what Aisha has here in this book is a great way to do that. That's what we're talking about, because we already know what's going to happen. And we already know that these people already have given us appetites for things that we shouldn't have appetites for. People go around talking about, I want a Maserati. When? How? When did you get that appetite? Who told you that? So we have to unlearn certain things too.
I'm rocking the 2013, and I ain't getting rid of it till it start making noises I can't explain.
I'm rocking a Schwinn bicycle. I'm gonna get a touch bike. Y'all gonna see me with a little horn when you go down the street like that.
Blowing the horn. I know that's right. Blow the whistle. So Yvette, I want to get to you on this question, because a lot of times I think people act as if reparations stops racism. Can you talk to us about how will the proposed reparations affect racial dynamics in the U.S.?
Oh, I don't think anything stops racism, right? I think we can be a more harmonious country when we're not fighting for the things that we're owed, because we're not fighting for, hey, pay us reparations. But I think you still have to have this suite of anti-discrimination law, right? Because a lot of people are not going to like willingly unlearn racism. Then it's not going to become new people all over a sudden. So we have to still have a certain amount of anti-discrimination law that says in housing, in work, all of that sort of thing. So this is not a panacea where you get to go and undo when you talk about welfare, whether you talk about SNAP, you don't get to go and undo that, because that's for everybody too. That's for people in Appalachia, that's for poor people, that's people in Louisiana, Mike Johnson's district, that's for everybody. So no, it doesn't undo racism. What is it pays you back for a specific thing, but it doesn't undo racism. So when we talk about anti-discrimination law and things like that, those things still have to happen. They still have to be a part of our politics. But this area of politics, in terms of redress, in terms of what we built and what we're owed, that gets taken care of. We don't enter a new America. You see, the racists are out front and loud right now, so we know who they are. But we don't want to have to negotiate with them. There are decent white folk who are pro reparations and want to get past this and move past this, and that's what we want to do. So one doesn't replace the other. No, reparations doesn't mean that racism in America doesn't exist and that we don't still have work to do in terms of policy, in terms of protecting our place in America and ensuring that we're not discriminated against.
I love and appreciate that so much, because you hear when you talk about reparations for ADOS, everyone acts like we have to fix every problem in the world first. Everyone would turn around and be like, well, is this going to stop people from having to pay for cable? Like, why should we have to figure that out? Why should we have to figure that out before our people get justice? So,
and nobody else has to figure it out. Like, that doesn't work for any other group. Whether you talk about Native Americans, Jewish Americans, it doesn't work for any other group. Nobody ever says, well, what would this do? What would this do for the bear? The bear, do you care about the owls? Like, and nobody else says anything about any of those other things. It's the same. Is this just or not? Is this old or not? That's what it is. And so for us, I think we have to understand our job is not to fix. I've seen people to fix everything. I've seen people go around and say, well, this doesn't fix imperialism. Well, child, no, it don't. And I think there's some room for us to have solidarity with you if that's what you want to do, because we believe it's wrong as well. But no, since when is redress supposed to fix global problems?
Right.
Yeah, they be telling us we have to upend capitalism, so change the whole government to get like no one else has.
We have to have a revolution. It's racial capitalism. We have to have a whole revolution until America is burned to the ground. Child, what?
Yo, let me drink some more tea before we keep going. I need some more. some more of this Negro elderberry tea. All right. So.
All right.
We're coming down the home stretch. We're right at an hour 45. So let's do some quick hits here. Brother Claudio, I saw a question that I thought would be really, really good for you to talk about. What role does pain and suffering and lost opportunities play in the framework, specifically in terms of what is owed to the American descendants of slavery?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it speaks to the idea of damages, and this is where we definitely could use the help of those who want to do research into damages. Damages is a whole kind of category of law itself that has its own precedents and jurisprudence and theories, and a lot of that traces all the way back to English common law. So now you're dealing with kings and ye old English, and it gets very tricky. So you're trying to, kind of really obtain justice within the confines of this old English royal structure of law and ideas of man and nature and justice. And we know what a lot of folks were thinking about our ancestors when you're talking about the 1700s. We could definitely use some help with the research on that. But basically, as Aisha speaks to in the book, there is the compensation that's needed for the work that was done building this country, and that was never compensated at that time, and that should be with certain amounts of interest and compounding and building, because that's what is owed, and you can't you have to account for the time in which you haven't paid us yet as well. But then things like lost opportunity and pain and suffering are different categories of damages. And they can be more contested. Sometimes they're allowable and sometimes they're not. So, being able to make the best case for what we're owed to be made whole, to close that lineage wealth gap, is going to require us to really understand the different types of damages, the different categories, the different harms we've suffered, and how they've manifested in, our quality of life and the deprivation that we've seen. So, damages gets tricky, and so you need this framework, you need a book, you need folks like Aisha and the policy team and everybody else who have put so much thought into the policies that will support our reparations program.
Absolutely. Let's see. Let's take one or two more. If you have a pressing question right now, throw it in the chat. I want to take one or two of those too. If it's a question that hasn't been answered or asked today, I see a couple of things that are really interesting. The down payment is stitches to a gaping wound. Yes, the wound is closed up and it still needs to heal from the inside out. So there is more work after cash payments are made. That's what I'm talking about. And I just want to point out also, there are a lot of folks who represent different groups or not really organizations, but they're not here educating you tonight. They're not here making sure that you have a framework so you can go work with your people and your legislators and be educated around reparations. If you're interested in taking that step past yelling reparations and actually organizing around reparations, make sure you go to joinados.com right now. Go to joinados.com right now. RET now, RET now. You know what I mean? Go ahead and do it. I see a couple of things in chat. What is the cash payout demand for New York State? I'd say that our cash payout is a federal payout. There is not a state that could compensate us to the amount that we need. There's no state that could do 20 trillion, and not all of us live in one state. So one of the reasons that we're fighting on a federal level is we believe it needs to encompass all of the American descendants of slavery across the nation. And so we don't, the state isn't going to be able to pay cash payments. I know we'd love for it to happen, but if you add all of the states' budgets up, I think you're looking at like $3 billion for all of the states. So that they can't touch that 20 trillion. The United States government can, and that's where we're taking our fight. The fight on the local level is disaggregation. It is making sure that that there's a list of harms locally and on a state level, because ADOS had different horrible experiences in different states. You look at a state like New York, outside of just slavery, you had folks who would bring their slaves to New York to vacation. And even when slavery was outlawed in New York, those slaves still had to be slaves. They couldn't go say, hey, I'm about to go to the bodega and be free. They were still slaves. So let me see. Okay. Here goes a question from the chat. Can you talk about the importance of building allies with other groups like Japan American Citizens League, AME Church, NAACP, Urban League? If you look on the channel far enough, you'll actually see we had a conversation with John Tatashi in relation to Japanese American reparations years ago. He was one of the main organizers to get Japanese Americans reparations. But Yvette, I'd love for you to talk to this particular question about building allies in different groups.
Well, I think anybody who is on our page in terms of, hey, this is lineage based, are people that we're willing to work with. Insofar as the NAACP, I've had conversations with local NAACP branches about, hey, we would like to do some work with you. I haven't heard that from the top, but I think we are always willing to work with people who are on our page, because our page is that, hey, we need this to be lineage based. And I don't think everyone is on board with that, right? I don't think necessarily the Urban League is on board with that. And I think it's the job of the people to say, hey, this is the path. You have to get on board with this. This is where we are, right? I think that is your job. That is everybody's job. It's my job too. I'm not saying that it's not my job, but to get everybody on that path. So we need you to be in favor of lineage as the path for reparations, and we can do that. But I'm not opposed to any particular person or group. If you are on board with our lineage-based reparations and we're pushing forward on that, or even if you're on board with something else that we're working on that is part of the transformative Black agenda, we can do that as well. But there have to be, that's the point of departure for me. So that's what I'll say about that.
And also, you know, in wording that question of it, something that sticks out to me, there was a time where the NAACP and the Urban League were on the front end of lynchings in 1919. They were on the front end. And so it's interesting today, we have to ask, are they allies when at one time they were us? And so I think that
we're leading the charge.
And we're leading the charge. And so part of what needs to happen, if you're an NAACP member right now, and I've been an active NAACP member while I was in Gwinnett County, Georgia, while working with the ADOS Advocacy Foundation. If you're an NAACP member now, you should be asking them, what are they going to do to close the racial wealth gap? Give your NAACP president an ADOS Reparations Framework. Give your Urban League chapter. Y'all talk about the framework, because this is undeniable stuff. And if those organizations want to be on the front end of justice, then they should be rocking with us.
Those of you all who remember in 2019, our first conference, what we talked about was Project Takeover. And Project Takeover was you getting into other spaces, into other organizations, and influencing inside of those other organizations. We have always said that our influence should not just be ADOS. Our influence should not just be the ADOS Advocacy Foundation. We should have people in those other organizations who are influencing leadership. So Project Takeover should not be over. You should still be in those other organizations saying, hey, we got to do this. Hey, we should be a part of this. Hey, let's figure this thing out, because they have information, they have money, they have resources, and we should be trying to be inside of those organizations and influencing and pushing them in a different direction.
And I would also say, don't underestimate the degree to which the people in those organizations are already primed for the ADOS conversation. Don't forget, these are our people. You go to the AME church, those are ADOS people. NAACP, though it's open to all, it's largely ADOS people. Or Urban League, founded by ADOS people. So go in there and talk to your people. Like we come from slavery, we come from Jim Crow. You know, we have family in the South who came off the plantations, people that fought in all the wars. You can have that conversation. If you go in there, some of you may be surprised the degree to which that they'll go along with you. And truth be told, like in some of the conversations that we've had with local chapters, they're like, oh, thank God, I need the help. They're waiting for you. Go get them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Last question here. We are right at our time limit. Aisha, you've broken in the reparations framework. You've talked about it being phases. and you break down the possible different phases. And this, you have phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. And the framework centers on phase 1. I'll read this. Phase 1 of the reparations framework centers on the 90 years of chattel slavery in the United States from 1776 to 1865, as well as the subsequent 13-year Reconstruction era from 1865 to 1877. The year 1776 was designated, and you talk about a little bit why. And I think one of the questions that we got, and a lot of people asked to, especially those who read the book, is how will success be measured in phase 1 of the reparations plan? And I'd love to hear from Aisha and Yvette here.
That's a great question. Great question. So for those of you who read the book, you know that we have 5 essentials of repair that is discussed. And that's a great starting point in terms of how do we measure success. So for me, and this is a little inside baseball, you know, it would be great to be able to have a reparations bill, that one bill that covers all that we want in this book and all of our demands, and it gets all the sponsorships that it needs, and it gets through committee, and it gets through a vote in both houses and signed by the president, right? But just the nature of politics, like that's just really a high bar, unless it's something that is like super duper easy that everybody already wants and was going to do and gets passed. That's just not going to be the nature of this fight. So in reality, we may walk in with 5 reparation bills or 6 reparation bills. They may, you know, deal with a different essential of repair in each bill, right? Some may double up or cross over, but it may be broken down. So success to me is even getting the bill written, B, getting the bill sponsored. That's another marker of success. Just so you know, there isn't just one successful thing. There is a whole list of success indicators. So again, one would be getting it written, and it may be a number of bills. The other is getting it sponsored. The other is moving it through committees and getting it eventually passed. And it doesn't have to be every single part of the book. It may be one bill, which in my mind, the most important one to start with would be the one in initiating a Department of ADOS affairs. So having the DAA established would be monumental. Like, I can't even tell you, it would be monumental. And the DAA establishing will obviously cross over a lot with ensuring the protections that will be needed, and ensuring that we have certain staff in place that people won't be taken advantage of, and ensuring that we have economists and we have historians and we have genealogists in place in a DAA doing that work to help our folks, number one, verify their lineage, help our folks safeguard that information about where they're from, to verify that lineage. So that would be huge. That I can't tell you how big that alone would be. So in all likelihood, it won't be one reparations bill. There will be several, but that DAA one is the most significant one, because if without that, nothing else is organized, nothing else can really, you build up from an organization, right? So without that DAA, where do you go from here, right? So,
and Aisha, can I jump in real quick? Because on page 5 of the reparations framework, y'all, if you don't got the book, you should get it. On page 5 of the reparations framework, it says the 5 essentials of repair. And it lays it out: established governmental operations, financial restitution, land justice and reparative equity, improved educational standards, and mental health and reparative justice. So we've laid out very plainly the 5 essentials of repair. Yvette, I'll take that question to you. Like, how is success measured in terms of phase 1 of our reparations framework?
Well, I think I would agree with Aisha that it is the structure, right? I remember when part of the reason people got so pissed off with Obama in terms of Obamacare is because it was kind of based off Mitt Romney's bill, over here in Massachusetts, wherever he was at the time. And people were saying, we have this whole suite of Medicare for all and all these different bills that have been here that you can kind of piece together and do your own thing as opposed to going over there. And so there's always in Congress a bunch of bills that you can pick and poke from, because we were the ones who, our most dubious distinction is that we were the one who got most of the co-sponsors on HR 40, right? So I know we can do that again, right, with something that's real. But you have to, just like with Obama and all those different bills, and even when they did stuff, they still took a bunch of stuff from different bills and made it into Obamacare or whatever. But you have to have that stuff already there, because that's what you're going to pick from and choose from and build into the reparations bill that you're going to have. And we have to have that there. We have to have our bill there. That's the first thing. And the second thing is what I said in terms of we have the Department of Indian Affairs. Why has there never been a Department of ADOS Affairs? Why isn't there something, an organization, an institution over in the government, right, that deals specifically with us, talks to us, speaks about us to the people who are in power and represents us to the people who are in power? That's part of the structure that you have to have, right? This is part of the building apparatus that you have to have if you want truly meaningful and substantive legislation for your people. Because we're not, in my mind, we're not just talking about reparations either. There's other things that have to come out of this, but that's not the conversation for today. But you also have to have somebody or an organization that's ours that's measuring this racial wealth gap. Okay, if it starts widening back out, we have to figure out why. And then we have to fix that too. Because what is this happening? Is that some type of governmental thing that's happening there? What are the factors that are creating this? Because we want to close it and maintain the closure. Because that's the way I see it. Like I've said it a few times, if you cut somebody, it's going to take a whole lot more time to heal that cut than it took to inflict that wound. And that was my whole problem with Sandra Day O'Connor saying, "Oh, how long are we going to do this?" Well, how long did you do it, honey? How long did y'all do it? Like, that's the conversation we got to have. If you did it for all these years and all these generations, it's going to be multiple generations. You don't get to say, well, when the cut is just starting to heal, well, it looks like it's all right to me. Like, that's not how we measure. And you have to have an organization that is that is geared towards us, just like the Office of Indian Affairs deals with them, that deals with us and says, this is happening, right? The racial wealth gap, which is really a lineage wealth gap, is widening again. Let's talk about what's happening. Let's talk about how to fix. Let's talk about how there's discrimination in this sector now. Let's talk about how we have a problem over here. Let's talk about housing appraisals and what's happening over here that monitors that and maintains that so that we don't have this problem again in another 20, 30, 40, 50 years. We don't want to do that again, because if there's one thing this country knows how to do, is exploit. This country has managed exploitation and addiction and all these kind of things to make sure that we kind of stay on the bottom. So I want to make sure that we have the structures in place to maintain and measure and modify when it needs to.
Absolutely. Before we go, if you have not gotten your reparations framework, this is the QR code to get it right now. In addition to getting it, we want to hear about it. And we want you all to engage this framework. So we'd love for you to post on social media showing that you've gotten the reparations framework. And we invite members of the public to participate in our ADOS Reparations Framework engagement campaign. We've created a wonderful Google form that if I can get smarter than my machine, I can put it up here. There we go. I finally got smarter than the machine. They say you only need 10%. So we have a Google form that we put up, and it allows you, if first we want you to purchase and read the book. We want you to discuss the book with others, and we want to be accountable to one another. And we encourage you to encourage others to purchase the copy or purchase it for them. I'm on my 5th book, and I've given 4 away because I know that members of my community, members of my family need to read this book, so I can make sure that if we end up going to DC, I can have a car full of people versus me just going by myself. And so we're going to throw this in chat so you know how you can fill out this form and let us know how you're engaging the reparations framework. I actually think I have it right here. So it is a Google Doc form, and it's our reparations framework engagement program, and it doesn't cost you anything. All we're asking you to do is to read the book and share it with your family and friends. I've
But
thrown it
also,
in.
just so they know, Simeon, it's a little friendly competition going on here too with this form. So the idea is that for folks who fill out the form of you, we want to know how many people you talk to about the book, and we want to know how many people you've influenced to purchase the book. And so what the form is going to allow you to do is to let us know by December 31st what those numbers look like. And so whoever has the most will get some ADOS swag. So this little friendly competition to get people engaged, get them involved, get them excited about reading the book again. It'd be a great Christmas gift, be a great Thanksgiving gift. If you can't bake, if you can't put a pie together, then go ahead and give them an ADOS reparations framework, okay? And I have to tell you, my mother probably is coming in at number 1. So good luck. She sold that book more than anybody I know, except for Yvette. Yvette and her definitely sold a lot of books. After Yvette, it's Mama Jen. So whoever comes in at number 3, you can certainly get some ADOS swag, and you'll have until December 31st to make that happen. And there's I can't think of it offhand right now, but there's a hashtag, so you can share your pictures of folks who have the book and who you've been talking to about it. If you could get a group picture together where everyone holding the book up, that would be amazing. And you can post it to your social media, or you can email me at the policy address that's on that Google form that Simeon is sharing in the chat.
We'll also post it to social media. I want to give first and foremost a big shout out to all of our members and supporters. You all make the difference. You're the reason why your state coordinators and policy teams across the country are now able to walk into representatives' offices and be taken seriously. You're the difference between social media and real life. So I just want to give a big shout out to all of our members, all of the supporters of the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, all of the people who are going out explaining what reparations is, explaining why it's important. If you liked what you heard today, go to joinados.com, or you can go to the adosfoundation.org and join directly from there. You can also donate. We don't have no super chats here. So if you like what you heard, drop us $5 today. Drop us $10 today. All of that is going towards creating a reparations bill. You can purchase the ADOS Reparations Framework by scanning this QR code here. It'll also be in the description of the town hall. So I want to give a big shout out to State Coordinator, Massachusetts State Coordinator Reggie Stewart. Another big shout out to New York State Coordinator Claudio Simpkins. A huge shout out to the ADOS Advocacy Foundation Policy Director and author of the ADOS Reparations Framework, Aisha Muhammed. And last but certainly not least, I want to shout out Madam President Yvette Carnell. Yvette, do you have any words to take us out today?
I appreciate it, Simeon. And shout out to you, the best. Let me tell you, you the best.
Yes.
MC. You're the best.
It's Negro elderberry tea for the week.
Sound like you got a little black tea in there. You was on fire. But no, I just want to encourage everybody to get involved. And I just also want to encourage everybody not to get frustrated. I think people tend to get caught up in the moment, and they see Trump and they see the things that are happening in terms of erasing our history, erasing us in schools and that sort of thing. And I want everybody to understand that this is a moment just like any other moment. Even if there are some differences, right? That this is still a moment. It's not forever. It doesn't end advocacy. You know, our people had to go through generations. There are people who lived a whole lifetime and didn't see freedom and still fought for it. So I think you have to just keep that in mind and stay optimistic about what we're doing and what is possible, and don't let people kind of talk you off of that path. we're headed in the right direction. We're doing the right thing. So just stay the course. That's all we need to do, and get somebody on the course with you. You can't be there by yourself.
Okay.
Hold it alone.
Thank you all so much. Thanks to the entire audience. Thanks to all of the people who are going to watch this after the fact. It is posted on YouTube. With that in mind, go to joinados.com, become a member, get involved. Make sure you're purchasing that reparations framework book so you can be educated exactly about reparations and how it should look. I am Simeon Harris, your host. Thank you all so much for your time today. And thank you for the panel for such an informative and wonderful session. Shout out to everybody out there. You all have a great evening.
For far too long, reparations for American descendants of slavery have been dismissed as impossible. Now, in ADOS Reparations Framework, a book written by Aisha Muhammed, Policy Director for the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, delivers a bold, actionable plan to make reparations real. From defining eligibility to financial restitution, land equity, education, and mental health healing, this guide walks you through every phase. If you're ready for credible, effective solutions, this is the blueprint. ADOS Reparations Framework available now. With every purchase, 100% goes directly to the Justice for Generations campaign. Justice isn't a hope, it's a plan.